I don't even bother.
Rat tail, my backdrops, all black seals. Dog biting my bird curse. Cross-eyed, world's worst. Troglodyte, might split the blinds. I'm like Vince Van with that instant rice. I write cryptograms at all waking hours. Tattooed the mail and all paper towels. I'm on the kitchen walls. I may paint the house. Could breach the yard, so mega bound. Game face on dour days. Y'all gangs like How Queen. Gangway for that full start. Verse freight trains through stalled cars. Shame, so whack. Show you back to this malt jar. Death wish from day one. I wake up and it rain blood. Rain check these shows. I'm donezo. My brain's mush. Drum roll, I might straight. Loose tooth in my spit shake. Every possible future I'ma come trooping out of his pill case. And I ricochet in my steel cage. One still heart and two wheels eyes. Few meal bars, a good field knife. I feel good, no field guide. Just DSI by DF5. One say the whole glow stick and like 2 bites. I do this, I mean, yo. I was at the gates. Wolf said my boots on, no boot. And on both sides of that tough love. They're both mud, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Straight up and down, don't even
I was at
bother.
the gates. Snake skin, my hood low, don't sick. And on both sides of that bloodlust. They're both mud, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Straight up and down, don't even bother.
Bare paw, my handshake, oh dear God. Bare bones, few air holes. Barefoot, my square glows. Scarecrows, who goes there and like who's wearing that snare close. Bare hands in his bear trap, what's staring back in his periscope. A little care package at a Where's Waldo in a rare beige. No favorite all, dyed hair and all. Push wood, I go Mach 1, I'm all whoosh whoosh. I don't puss foot, I make potholes. My path homes, all drop zones. Flash bulbs and strobe lights. Road signs with crossbones. Touche from our killjoys, you know humanoids, just hit points. Ain't cop that new heat, that new speaks all pink noise. More mood, peace around street food in my PJs and my snowshoes. About dog fights in those dungeons, little dust ups in y'all's throne room. It's fun stuff. Low moan in my tombstone, say hell no. Hell yeah, the more hailstorms, reward chips on St. Elmo's. My dream home is like 10,000 deadbolts and less than no windows. I mean, I was at the gates. Wolf said my boots on, no boot. And on both sides of that tough love. They're both mud, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Straight up and down, don't even
I was at
bother.
the gates. Snake skin, my hood low, don't sick. And on both sides of that bloodlust. They're both mud, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Straight up and down, don't even bother.
All right. What's up, guys? It's Tuesday. Another Note to File Live. What's up, Dr. Fox?
Hey, Brad. I know there's a live open mic event, but I did want to talk about one amazing
Please.
thing that I witnessed.
Let's hear it.
All right. So for all of you who weren't at the Y Prime Innovation Network gathering, this individual right here gave a stellar TED Talk level performance where he was multitasking, not only stacking up all of the crazy tech that almost didn't make it to the conference, but also he had an amazing message that resonated with so many people that it actually drove the innovations that were being created at the conference. So I did want to give you a big kudos, Brad. You delivered, man. And not only that, but you came right out of the gate. You were the first one, and you're the one that everyone was talking about at the conference.
I appreciate it. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And of course, yeah, the devices not showing up was just made everything stressful. So glad I was able to pull it off. Hopefully you guys are out there. I don't know why, like my stream, it's not showing that I'm actually streaming this. So hopefully it's coming through for you guys. I see a few comments, but I think they're all linked to your stream.
Oh, the StreamYard? Yeah. I wonder, am I the one that presents those? No, that's up to you.
No, I still have to, but
Okay.
it's just it acts like it's not streaming out to my account, which again, not the end of the world, but
I noticed it's cool. You've got the StreamYard link right there. So if someone wants to hop onto this open mic, go to that website.
That's the intent here today. I don't really, I don't have anything necessary to talk about. Hey, Sphera. Okay, well, so it looks like maybe it is working then. So yeah, the link at the bottom, if you put that into your browser, you will actually get backstage and get thrown up onto the stage. So don't put that in unless you want to get thrown on stage. Otherwise, if you you can communicate through normal LinkedIn, YouTube. Occasionally people want to ask questions or say things that are more anonymous, so you're free to text those. I put a number down there as well. Just trying to make all media possible, whatever your preference is. So, hey, man, I would be honored to take that job. I tell people that's like half the fun is just coming up with songs to play. Apparently, Angel.
Dance parties.
You can leave now. Everything after this is not going to be as fun as the music that gets played. Patty, so you guys forgive me if I get this wrong, if anyone out there is listening, but I believe this is only the second year they've done it. It's sort of a smattering of different folks across the industry, but it's sort of a recommendation invite only sort of ordeal. There were very highly produced talks, like literally TED Talk quality. I think the people set it up worked for the TEDx organization at one point. And then interspersed are sort of like these dive groups where people are working on like real solutions to industry problems. It's very well curated. I know you guys talked about it yesterday, so I don't want to like rehash the whole thing. You guys can go check out Dan Sfera and Fox if you didn't see that, talk more about it. But I thought it was really unique and pretty cool, compared to your sort of run-of-the-mill trade show. Sfera, you can come on if you want, man. Dan. You got the link.
Yeah, maybe he's too busy making dry ice right now.
I was going to say he's making dry ice. I can tell.
Oh, but yeah, Patty, from what I gathered, a couple things. So the company Y Prime, this is almost like it started as their employee retreat with some extra like external stakeholders coming in to help to enhance what Y Prime does. But I think it's become so innovative that they're going to start expanding it out a little bit, maintain the quality, but the conference organizers that they utilize, just like what Brad said, they are very well organized. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but we are actually talking about potential collaborations between those organizers and SOS, because we want to make sure that we have that same quality at SOS. And maybe even the potential of a sister conference where SOS can make ideas and then run it through these kinds of conferences as potential incubators to grow the ideas into actual progress, not just sit around and talk about things, but to show that we are doing something about it. So a lot of good potential there. It's my kind of conference. That's what I'd like to say, because it was very efficient. Admittedly, I was exhausted afterward because it's like 30 hours of a gauntlet, but you just love it. You love the whole thing.
Yeah, it's almost, I was telling somebody, I mean, I feel like I was like being put to work in some ways, but in a good way, right? Like it wasn't like, I didn't feel bad. It was weird because we'd never actually like met in person, but I feel like we hardly got to talk to each other because it was so much.
Yeah, I had one goal
going on.
One goal when I went to this conference, and that was to get a picture with Brad Hightower. And guess what I failed to do? It was just, we were just constantly, like there was meetings after meetings, very curated, very structured, but you walk away feeling a lot better about a lot of things.
Yeah, I thought it was encouraging all in all. And again, it was just fun to like, I think I made a post about it, but it's like validating to, because my speech was literally like another me, like here's a problem. I don't have any solutions for it, but here's a problem. And then to see people like try to build a solution around it, like that's the whole idea, right? Like
it was so cool.
So connecting,
they did a good job.
Connecting in that way, I think was, gave
so I have to optimism. Ask, admittedly, I think you've become so busy. I mean, it's conference season for one thing, but you've gotten to travel. You're believe it or not, you're running your own business. How do you feel about your old school Note to File podcast, and where do you think that's going?
Yeah, I know Wimmer was asking about that. I don't know that I'll go back to doing it that way. I've got a couple more to release, and I'm sorry to the couple of people I recorded like 2 months ago and still haven't released. I don't know. I kind of prefer this medium of doing it live and even more unstructured. I know the last few we've done have been like completely unstructured, but there's going to be the next few weeks coming up that are going to be a little more, topic oriented. So, we'll kind of get back on track with bringing in guests, talking about specific topics, and then I'll probably just convert those to audio. And that'll be sort of my lazy way of doing it both ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and at some point it may just be like, you know what, just go straight to live because you run out of things to record.
Right. Yeah. It's just tough to plan with everything else going on. And for a while there, it was, I had the nice balance where I could sort of like throw somebody a form, sign up, we'll do it. Bing, bing, boom. It gets edited. But it's just very chaotic right now. I like Patty's idea. Just hand out fake beer glasses.
Look like the ZZ Top band, man. It's got all the beards and the glasses.
Look, you got some time to catch up. So just stop shaving between now and February.
I've got to get there. They say you take prenatal vitamins to make hair grow faster. So I just, load up on prenatal vitamins and get my hair cut and keep my beard going.
There you go. Oh yeah, only if it helps the hair on top of my head, and I feel better about it.
But overall, I mean, yeah, it's been a crazy. It's conference season, of course, and so you've been to a few conferences. What are the topics that you're seeing as a trend in conferences right now, like the relevant ones?
I mean, at both. I mean, Socra was Socra, so it was kind of what I expected in terms of like a lot of site level stuff. I was surprised to hear so much site talk at both like Fierce and even the Y Prime thing, where it's like an innovation gathering, and it wasn't all sites, but there was at least another talk that was specifically about sites,
and that was a sponsor at that.
Yeah, right. So it's cool. People are talking. I feel like at both of those events, you and I, and there was maybe one other guy that I know for sure was from a site. So I think Nick from FOMAT was there. I don't know if there's someone else that I'm missing. There may be, and apologies, but so it's being talked about, but I think still not really not quite enough representation, I guess, from that side. But at this point, it's like I'll take it. Walk before we can run, I guess.
I really enjoyed the AI talks. I didn't think I would, but
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, I just came in with sort of I have a hard time understanding how from the site level it's going to be that game changing. I mean, I see some ways, but a lot of the talk is about generative AI and I just don't. And again, I tell everyone I'm not that well educated about it, so I might just be missing something. But I did really like the guy from was it Loon? I think is the company.
Yeah, the one. So my favorite one was the talk about the augmentation. So the only thing that's limiting our utilization of AI is augmentation into our lives, and they used comparators of like a calculator. A lot of people don't do mental math anymore. You depend on your calculator or your GPS on your phone. You don't use paper maps. So there's this gradual evolution of what we as a society accept as being the norm. And that is 100% augmentation of a technology into your practices. That is what resonated with me. And it actually made me realize some of my shortcomings and things that I would want to do to improve my life. As far as where it's going to go specific to a coordinator, that's always going to depend on the creativity of that coordinator. Maybe you could utilize, people are already using the Grammarly's of the world to help emails, but protocol.
Yeah, that's true. But to me, I mean, and I don't know, again, maybe I'm I like writing. I like talking to patients. I think a lot of coordinators do. And sometimes when I hear those being the use cases, again, maybe it will save time or be more efficient. I have a hard time seeing that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's also
Source. Look at Source. Have what if AI can help to build
true
Source? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Well, just today we had somebody who builds our eSource on our team. They sent over a new ECRF guidelines, but there was no red line, so she pushed it through. I don't even know the website, but it uses AI, and it pulled the differences between the two CRF guidelines. So within a minute, she was able to tell, here are the changes I need to make to Source. So nice. I guess that is a perfect example right there.
Yeah.
And hey, man, someday it will.
It will.
It'll know that you need it for that particular visit.
No, it'll just predict what's in the sample, and you won't have to ship it anyway.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, I have a hard time talking about it because I'm so sort of uneducated about it, to be perfectly honest. So I have a hard time speculating. And
So one thing I learned, do you remember the second day? The second day they had that cool B-roll video of all the things. AI made that.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Isn't that cool? Like,
yeah, I know. It was actually interesting to sort of see it in real time. And was it the one where they had the like AI generated person did the presentation?
No. I mean the very beginning. You know how they took the footage from the day before?
Oh, I see. Okay.
That was generated by AI. They put all the B-roll in and said, make me an inspirational video. And it picked out all the time points and overlapped the quotes. So, I mean, that was a really cool, powerful, like that would have taken hours to do. And they were able to put it together in a rapid timeline for a conference, which was pretty amazing.
That is pretty cool. And see, these are the kinds of questions I don't even know.
Yeah. So there's a whole list of regulation building around this right now. And we're not talking about Terminator era Armageddon stuff. We're talking about literally augmenting AI to help to enhance what we do in our lives for higher productivity.
Yeah, and again, I have so little knowledge. I can't speak. And actually, to this point, who would be a good person to come talk about that kind of stuff? That might be. This is how we learn. This is how we learn.
Bring our Loon friend, the person.
Yeah, true.
Or I mean, we met some friends.
That's a good point. So. That's a good point. Should follow up on that and get there.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used Midjourney, and again, this is like, I just haven't messed with a lot of this stuff. Have you been on there and played around at all?
I mean, I've been too busy making podcasts, but yeah, it's a thing. I mean, I honestly, you could probably like make podcasts better.
Yeah, that's probably true. I bet we could hit up like I wonder if you could like do a search like what are the most like talked about topics on LinkedIn this week and do like have it scrape that, and then you can talk about hit on the stuff that people care about or we're talking about in that moment.
Yeah, or I mean, so many other things. So I've seen Ethan. So I think Dan just interviewed Ethan, right? Ethan Bond.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation with Ethan.
I like how it just ends right here to find places where I can help. We're waiting, Ethan. Where's the rest of your comment?
But yeah.
It's the ex-Palantir dude, right? I did watch that interview and thought it was pretty interesting.
Yep. But I think AI was good. There was a really inspirational, the diversity talk was very, very good. They did a good job on that one as well.
Yeah, they were all good. I'm waiting for them to come out. I don't know how long
it's supposed to be YouTube or something, right? They said it was going to be posting on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, I think they'll be on there. And then
they'll be on there eventually. But
hey, I can do a Brad deep fake. Get sponsored by SIP. Please. Hey man, they got some money over there, so go ahead, SIP. We'll talk. Give me a call.
Yeah, maybe SIP could sponsor SOS, right? I mean, I'm not plugging SOS, but my gosh, Brad, after those conferences, I've been doing nothing but meeting with potential sponsors. I just had one sponsor ask if they could they could lock in a 36-month rate with SOS, which for me is like, okay, well, there's a lot of confidence there. Like, okay,
I was going to say that if nothing else, then they're putting, they are saying like, hey man, all right, you're going to be around.
We got this. We got you.
Right.
And that was cool. It was a cool feeling. So now we got the pressure of delivering at SOS, and that's a whole other expectation. For any of you trying to do a conference, man, it is not easy. There's a lot of work behind it. A lot of work.
Yeah. Well, thanks to people like you who are doing the hard work.
I don't know how like one person. No, there's no way one person could do this. It's hard for 7 people to do this, especially 7 people who have full-time jobs.
Right.
So and honestly, there's more than 7. I guarantee you, my wife is probably one of the best support groups that I have right now. SOS and all the other things that we do.
Yeah, well, that's why they're professional conference putter honors, which I know is not what we are trying to be, but that also makes it that much more challenging, right? All right, Ethan, thank you. Sorry, I had the cut off there, but to find where AI can help, look for repetitive workflows where the final result can be checked by a human anyway. It won't be able to give you the right answer, but it can help you cut down the problem space. And frankly, look, I mean, to your point, the site is full of these things, and this is sort of like a mindset change. I, speaking for me personally, like need to like think about, because there are a lot of those at the site level. So there's probably a lot more opportunity. And I feel like I asked the question before, but didn't get a lot of really great answers. So maybe it just hasn't been a lot of uptake yet.
So part of me says, and I've worked at a site, I understand, but I mean, there's sites that they're not even adopting the solutions that were out there to begin with, like
that's fair.
electronic things. And a lot of times when you're in a site and you're literally in the middle of a perpetual grind, you do not have the bandwidth to focus on improvement, and that goes back to the whole, don't have the money, don't have the time to train in something. We can't shut things down so we can beta test a program. So since they're so reluctant as an industry on the site level to adopt things that are in the marketplace now, I'm not sure where AI is going to fall into place for that.
Well, to your point, I mean, there's a lot of stuff now that like I want to use or I want to better integrate, but it's just you need a body and like people to put those things into place, and all the sites generally aren't full of a bunch of extra administrative people to put those things in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is challenging. It's good tech. Yeah. There's good tech. There's good solutions, but a lot of them are just sitting on the sidelines because to integrate it requires building or integrating into an existing process. It's a whole thing, right?
Yeah, and no sponsor wants their trial to be a guinea pig. They want everything to be perfect on their trial. They don't want you to be testing things out when you're performing the research. They've got too much on the line for that.
Well, that's one thing. Interestingly, I don't know if I talked about this, but like I learned it more at Fierce than I assumed. But like even within industry, I think there's more of a split than what we're sort of led to think. Like, you go on LinkedIn and it's like AI, DCT, new everything. We should be using it. It's going to change the world. And then like you go talk to the sponsors and they're like, they're mixed at the sponsor level. Like some, they've got their like, there's a lot of like innovation roles or roles with the word innovation in them.
Yep.
I heard some talk about how those are sort of being the first to get cut, unfortunately. But, across other large chunks of the, these companies, like there are people who are like, to your point, they're like, no, we don't want to be the early mover for.
We can't risk it. We've got too much on the line. If it's not broke, don't fix it. We can't risk it. It's risk assessment. This isn't worth the risk.
Yeah, Patty. I mean, again, it's like sites. This is where I think sites need to start to evolve and get more creative. And it's easier said than done. But to your point, you need people who can look into this stuff, work to integrate it. You need more than just CRCs, but that's what a lot of sites are just CRCs. Because again, like if it doesn't contribute to enrolling a patient, then it's hard to justify because that's all we get paid for. Right? We don't get paid to do anything other than see patients. Like we're paid per visit.
Yep.
So
and there's rarely a margin. So now since you're only being paid to survive, you can't improve. And I think that's the perpetual problem is, you're constantly just wham, bam, do the work. Thank you. Here I go. Nothing left. And you're left with most of the time a debt because you're underfunded. So you never have an opportunity to reinvest into improvement.
Yeah. You're just kind of chasing your own tail. I don't know who this is. I think there's a big gap. Many of the CRAs were advising against. I'd like to hear more about what this is in reference to.
I think it's AI maybe.
It could be, or just sort of maybe it could be. Yeah. And that's where again, I'd be curious to hear more from the CRA side. I mean, you sort of got, truthfully, the voices are vendors and sites. Those are the loudest voices, and it's some sponsor, but I feel like again, people at the sponsor level are usually sort of like in those innovation roles anyway. So like what else are they going to do? I mean, of course,
Honestly, like the
innovation.
CRAs that I'm talking to, they're looking at me saying that would be a nightmare to monitor. There's no freaking way.
Well,
And now
I mean,
you're, you know,
I talked to CRAs who are monitoring some of the, I don't know, you know what you call them, like decentralized organizations, and you know, to hear some of those stories is kind of insane because you know it is a different beast, right? Now, I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, but you know, a lot of it seems to be not instilling confidence in CRAs who've been around a while. And you know, Patty, to your point, yeah, no one wants to be the first to take that first injection or pill either.
Yep.
But that's ironic because that's the whole basis of
the whole point
the
of
work
research.
that we do, right?
Yeah. Isn't it funny where we want to be innovative, we want to make the first new things, but we don't want to be the ones to be the first to test it. And I think it's very, very interesting. It's an interesting dynamic, but there's a lot of money riding on it. You can't blame them. You want to be very risk averse when you have so much of a chance of failing, especially when you're creating things that have a high chance of failure because it's a study, it's research.
Well, yeah, and this is something interesting. I felt someone I agreed with very strongly in my dive group was Joe Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about like, and this was in sort of reference to something else, but he's like, you know, if you're not doing it in a repeatable and standardized way, is it even science? You know?
Yeah.
And I didn't have a chance to talk to him as in depth as I would have liked to, but like, this is the question I ask myself about, like, as we continue to like do things differently across different local healthcare providers, different vendors, you know, the whole idea is like optionality, which really just means variability, right? So we're introducing more and more variability.
I love this quote from the FDA draft guidance on DCT. For those of you who've read it thoroughly, and I'm sure we all have, there's the quote that says, if you as a sponsor are worried about the variability as a result of working in HCP offices, like with weight calibrations and things like that, if you're worried about that being a problem for your statistics, then maybe your signal isn't strong enough. And that really resonated with me because it's a good point. If you try to control everything in clinical research when you test it on subjects, especially in your phase 3s, and you have statistical power because everything's controlled, and then you start launching it into clinics and all of a sudden it doesn't work, maybe you're giving yourself a false sense of security in your statistics by trying to control it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to me, like, is it worse science?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a hard time imagining how it's not. Again, like, we're adding more variables. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a scientist, so
it's messy. Yeah, clinical research is messy.
It's already messy, man.
It was messy to begin with,
right?
And now it's going to be even messier. And that, are we ever going? And so now you've got the perfect storm of the diversity plans that are being required. And I learned you're not allowed to call them diversity plans in certain states anymore. They have to be called something else. You've got the combination of the FDA DCT guidance, which what you're going to see is a massive reduction in power, which means you're going to have a huge increase in N values to achieve the same statistical significance. Are we going to even get anything approved anymore if we've applied so much forgiveness toward variability?
I guess we'll see. Well, I mean, it's certainly going to I will feel a little less confident in drugs that are being approved. I feel like,
Yeah. And I like Ethan. Ethan had a good quote there. And you need statistics to demonstrate something. Maybe you need a better experiment.
So, yeah. And Ernest Rutherford, yeah. If the experiment needs statistics, I ought to have done better. Yeah. Well, that's not bad. And then Patty, the CRAs you work with don't mind using new technology. I know from audits you've done, there have been issues with qualifying vendors. It costs money to do that, data access, ownership, etc. And ultimately, I have to wonder, look, all of us agree with the concept of, like, we want to increase access to clinical trials, period. right? Like, we want to continue to move the needle. We want more good drugs to make it to market. Nobody's going to question that, but ultimately, isn't it going to be a business decision? I mean, if it costs more money and sponsors make less money by using these things, isn't it going to fail regardless of the sort of righteousness of the mission, so to speak? I mean, do you think that's out of line to say? It's going to come down to, does it save them time and money? And I'm not sure that that's the case right now.
Not yet. I think it's in its infancy. The theories behind it, like, you've got the technologies that are supposedly unlocking patient populations in communities, opening access to communities for research, giving HCPs opportunities to offer research without being dedicated investigators. The theories are all there, but they do have to be executed properly if you want them to happen. And I think
I guess maybe we're just not seeing that at scale yet.
No.
And it's still a lot of people chasing down different little methods and techniques. Again, like, the concept of like decentralizing isn't a bad concept in and of itself, but that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, actually, it means a lot of things. It could mean a million things. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing.
I think that, like, DCT 1.0 was an attempt to, and this is, I'm sure you love this word, the attempt to reduce site burden. And in essence, do everything in a community in subversion of what a site's processes are, but at sometimes utilizing the PI's name. And I think that itself, like, literally banking on a site to work with patients, but then pulling everything possible away from the site, I think that is probably where you get a lot of contention. I think that if you want this to work, your community advocates, this community specialists, the sites themselves, they have to be in control of the processes, the logistics, the decisions, everything. You can't continue to, like, cut all these things away in the name of site burden, but then not give the site anything at all to thrive.
Well, yeah, I agree. And so this is from LinkedIn user. We know this field's a slow adopter. The sites and its innovative CEOs are eager to use it all, but CROs are not so sure about it. Maybe that's the case. I think to Fox's point, look, this is just me. I'm not smartest guy in the world, but if I wanted to get DCT adoption, I would go to the sites and I would get the sites on board and I would get the sites singing the praises of DCT rather than sort of creating an almost, I don't want to say combative,
parallel industry.
Sort of, yeah, it is. Sort of feels like it's parallel, or like, kind of running alongside, but never fully like integrating. So, like, again, what I would do is I take a completely different strategy and be like, we need the sites to be asking for this. I think that would give things a better opportunity of succeeding. And I think, to LinkedIn users' point, there are a lot of us that are eager to use some of these tools. But again, it just feels like a big, messy, again, still sort of a messy, chaotic area to step into. And we know better than anyone, 483s or getting on a CRO's, blacklist or like whatever the case is. We have to be careful in how that stuff gets implemented.
So feasibility is coming through the pipeline right now, Brad. A number of sponsors and CROs are asking if sites have 2 new SOPs in their feasibilities. One is, of course, a diversity plan, and the other is a DCT utility SOP. So I see it in the future being, when you do feasibilities, sites saying, we are DCT compatible. This is what we have to offer. This is how we do it in our community. And so it's going to be like that competitive edge, so to speak, for a site to say, we know how to implement it in our community because it's going to demonstrate more rapid enrollment times and all of the wonderful things that DCT vendors try to tell us right now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I still would love to see more leaning on the community community sites.
Yeah,
I don't know
and
those
that's
standard enough yet.
that's going to be the one that leads, is because it doesn't matter like what kind of a wonderful DCT tech you have. If you don't have feet on the ground to implement it in the community, it's going to fail.
So Patty's. I don't think she's far off here, but I would demonstrate value financially and rigor for regulatory review to sponsor and use site cases as evidence of their value added. I think so too. There's
a challenge there, Patty, and that's something that the industry is having a hard time with, is that site cases, the use cases, really, really hard to generate cases when nobody gives it a chance.
Well, and also to your point, when sites are already so resource strapped, like you can't walk in and be like,
how are we going to explore that?
Try out all this stuff, and you're like, cool, like I wanna, but I need 3 more people on my team just to like figure this out and then roll it out and make it work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm loving these conversations. I was an open mic, man. I didn't know exactly where this would go, but
yeah, I was hoping to have more people come on like physically and talk, but Patty, 483s are part of being in this work, like driving and getting into a wreck or being ticketed. If you get a 483, no one's saying it's bad. Folks can recover from a warning letter. No, so actually, I agree with you. I've worked in institutions who have had 483s, and like really, they weren't egregious or anything terrible. They weren't fraud. They weren't big safety concerns. There were they were findings and they were addressed. And I think it may not be the worst thing in the world to consider that part of the learning process, but I think everyone's so scared of those 3 letters, right, or numbers rather. So I don't know. That's not a terrible way to think about it.
No, but I mean, you'd forever have to explain the 483 on your feasibilities, and then odds are you won't get selected. So
well, and that goes back to to sort of the culture of the industry, right? Is like, if the industry felt that way, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. Mm-hmm. Now, again, this place I worked before had one, and yeah, we always had to send the letter, send our response, but generally it didn't keep us from getting new trial opportunities, as far as I could tell. So it wasn't the end of the world. So no, I mean that's not a terrible point. I think sometimes that's not how physicians are, I guess, trained or told about like a 483. I have CRAs come in. I've had CRAs come in when we've had like minimal issues, some things we need to clean up, but they start telling the PI, this is your responsibility. You're going to get a 483. You're going to get blacklisted. You're going to get in big trouble. And then pretty soon, the PI just shuts down because now he's afraid.
That's actually a really good point, Brad, is maybe the severity of the perceived 483 is a result for the whole one and done in PIs. Like maybe they're just like, this isn't worth it. Maybe there should be a little something that built around that, where awareness of a 483 and the reasoning of it, and it's not the end of the world. And like what Patty was saying, maybe that's an interesting educational dynamic. What do you do if you get a 483? This is how you continue.
Yeah, and even then, obviously, there are like levels to that. I mean, 483 can be extremely serious depending on what the actual findings are versus not quite as concerning. I think 483 just means they have something that they found, right? I mean, it's almost more weird to not have any findings at all. If your work is so perfect that there's nothing to report, then that seems also a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, because again, research is messy.
Yeah, let's see. Hopkins and Pitt had major warning letters. We all learn about in city. They're still going strong. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different than some guy in Oklahoma than 2 major institutions full of key opinion leaders. I mean, that might be. I get what you're saying.
I mean, when you can afford to hire lawyers to file your feasibilities, then that's fine. But the small sites, they don't have the time to like always add even more documentation to their feasibilities.
So I see Ethan's. I want to address one more thing that I find really interesting. Patty, you're on fire today. Good job. Talking about 2 AMCs who sold their EDCs and got them commercialized. This is where I think I'd love to see more. And again, we still have the same problem. Like sites can't really, a lot of sites can't innovate, especially if you're not an AMC, but more solutions that are created at and by the site level. And I know that's something that you're have particular interest in, without saying too much, but I'm with you on that. Ethan, Dr. Fox, can you say more about what DCT SOP is that's being requested now?
Yeah, so right now, since the FDA has drafted their guidance for DCT utility last March with a publication target for December, there's going to be far more mainstream interest in DCT. Specifically, you're going to see DCTs being built into protocol. Part of the DCT requirement is that IRBs are going to review what visits will be, quote, DCT compliant in a protocol. And so as a result, because these are going to start to be baked into the protocols themselves, utilization of feasibilities to identify sites that have DCT utility will be key to get these protocols specifically. So a lot of times the DCT protocol will be talking about the logistics that you as a site have to offer for DCT, including communication plans to your healthcare providers, your HCPs, what utilities you might be using. And importantly, like a lot of the follow-up, a lot of the process that you might be doing, and even how you will be addressing potential SAEs, which is also spelled out in the FDA guidance.
Which still, I guess, isn't final at this point, right?
Publication is set for December. There's been 2 rounds of responses. I know some organizations have actually petitioned to remove the requirement of the task log, saying that is unnecessary and repetitive. We'll see if that flies. I see the task log coming through, which will honestly be the nail in the coffin for a lot of sites. They don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I have such sort of like mixed feelings about it. I mean, in fairness, I mean, I think you got to have a list of who's doing what.
I mean, if I were a CRA and I were monitoring a trial, every component, every part of the visit of the story, I would require some form of, there's no gaps. You don't want gaps as a CRA. If you were to monitor something, you want to know exactly how that patient went through, who handled the information, how it was handled. You'd want to have every piece of evidence. That's what monitors do. And
and to that point, we already see a lot of gaps, or not even gaps is the word, but differences between like the minimum required by a regulatory guidance versus like what practically is being asked for. CVs like are a perfect example. Like nothing says you have to sign a new CV every year or 2 years or ever. Doesn't say that anywhere, but your sponsors are going to beat you up about it.
Yep.
Time and time again. And, again, it gets really over-engineered once it gets over to like the CRO and sponsor side. Now you can sort of fight that and write your own SOPs at the site level.
Well, and that's where odds are the people who push you to that point probably have never read a CTA or understand what an independent contractor is. And that, again, that goes to the point where I think a lot of times sponsors, CRAs, are making demands that they are not legally entitled to make, or nor should they on an ethical level. And it may be a matter of re-education. You never lose the fight when you use the term independent contractor, because once you say that, there's the understanding that yes, we are the site. It's our necks on the line, not yours, and it's up to our discretion to do this appropriately. That's why you hired us to do it. Thank you for your advice. We'll take it under guidance. We really appreciate your expertise, but your word is not a mandate. It's up to us. And I've had to have that conversation before with CRAs, and they know better. Once they realize you know what you're talking about, they say, okay, I'll just document that I told you about it. Yeah. It's on you now.
So. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, usually I feel like as long as you can justify what you're saying, they'll usually back down from it. But
yeah,
still, even then, depending on, like, CRAs are all different, just like all of us are all different. Some of them will still insist. It'll become
Yep, it'll get escalated all the way up, and then they get shut down. And I've done that too. They've gone up to their supervisor, the sponsor, go through the whole thing, show defensibility, and then they say, well, the site's right. So it's up to them.
But even then, at that point, sometimes you've had to go through great lengths of
maybe
writing a note to file, or you got to pull out an SOP. You got to like do a whole song and dance just to be like, hey man, we don't have to do that. Like, settle down. And I get it. Again, it goes back to the same, like, being risk averse, right? Like the better they can prove it and tell their story that they've had the oversight too, the better it is for them. So, it's,
Yep.
but again, it just leads to this big circle of everybody protecting themselves so much that we can't do anything.
Can't do
We can't
anything.
progress.
Yeah. I agree completely. So
Yeah,
we'll
it's
see
weird.
where that goes. But
Well,
I-
I'm hoping that we're moving towards a world where, like, site voice is increasing, sites can learn from each other enough to, I feel like if we raise the issue enough, or like, I don't want to say like fight back, because it's not like we're fighting against them, but like if we can do this enough with enough sites, the stuff will sort of slowly
it'll
go
become
away.
culture. It'll be adopted culture. Out of curiosity, have you had any texts?
No, not really. Actually, the only one I got was some scammer trying to get me to contact them on WhatsApp. So I guess that's what I get for putting my thing out there.
Now remember, you have to go with like some Applebee's gift cards, right? And
Yeah. They started out by asking me to dinner, and I said I'll be there, and then they wanted me to contact them on WhatsApp, and now that's all they want. So it's okay. I tried, guys.
so much for that.
It's okay.
I mean, there's so many strong voices in the comments. Nobody wants to come on and say hi.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's sort of like some people aren't set up for it, or otherwise,
or they'd rather just stay in the comments,
or just don't want to. Yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine. If whatever people are comfortable with, I'm happy to have any engagement.
Yeah,
that's what, like, I think what you guys were talking about at like virtual conferences maybe yesterday a little bit. I did catch sort of the end, but like this is where I'm like, we basically can have them every week. Like this, to different degrees.
And I'm speaking at a couple, and I know that people paid to attend those. It's like, well,
whatever
we do it all the
reason.
time. Yeah,
Too late. Today or never. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we do need to. I do want to have him on sometime and talk about what he's doing. So
I don't know if you're gonna love this one, Brad, but I got Brian Burkhart from Oliver's Patch Project and Aaron Horowitz, the one with the teddy bear.
Yeah.
They're both going to be on my podcast next week.
He was at our
table
at dinner. Yeah.
Empath Labs. So they're both going to come on talking about pediatric participant trial experiences and what we can do for our kids. So
yeah, that's a niche I haven't really been in very much, and
it's a tricky one.
Yeah, we did a couple when I worked at university, but I didn't get real deep in it. So I can appreciate that that's a whole different ball game,
a whole other level of legality. You have to talk about the assents. You have to talk about the special needs of our children. I mean, a lot of considerations. It's a different world, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to say.
Seems like, in my experience, sponsors are always looking for pediatric sites. There's like a big need.
It's hard. A lot of sites just say, yeah, we don't do peds. Most of the feasibilities, like I have a feasibility, a pre-feasibility questionnaire for all of the sites in the network, and you'd be surprised how many of them do not click the pediatrics part. They just don't want to deal with it.
That's like ultra specialization. I mean, even doing research is like special, but then doing research with children is even like another little step down the rabbit hole. So yeah.
I mean, they'll do vaccines here and there, but any of the interventionals, layers of liability, layers of legality, a lot of people just say let the AMCs take care of that. So it's tricky. So if you ever want to go out there and start a site for kids, you probably have all the trials you needed.
I feel like that's true. Again, we have had to pass on a lot, but I feel like I've seen them pop up quite a bit. So yeah, I'm with you.
Another interesting concept is they're trying to save a lot of money. They're trying to do like a lot of burst trials, like really short-term trials. But they're trying to do it in long-term indications like arthritis. So a lot of these trials require like a 2-week washout for a 3-month treatment. And you just sit there like, that's not worth it. It's not worth it for the patient. So you get to that point where the development of the protocol for cost savings is not going to be impactful for the same participants.
Well, yeah, I mean, can't enroll anyone too. I mean, what?
Yep. No,
what
no one's
do you
gonna
say
wash
then?
out to get like, a month of treatment. So
Yeah, I still think it's a big problem across a lot. There's just these protocol designs, and I guess I get it. I'm sort of again straddle the line between like, okay, well, I guess you need placebo control, or you need that level of like specificity to make sure that the drug is the thing having the impact, but then it's not tracking with the real patient population in the world who need to also be treated with stuff that's already on the market. You know what I mean? Like it's very challenging.
So now this is just clearly protocol design, but what would you do if you did a double arm, like a cross bridge study, where the same exact patient was their own control and they received placebo and intervention? So they would know what was placebo, what was intervention, and they would be their own comparator.
They still have to have some period of placebo, right? At that point.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying is, okay, protocol design. We're over the course of 3 months, we're going to give you 2 kinds of treatment, and we're going to give you a 2-week washout in between. You're not going to know if that treatment was placebo or interventional. And one way or the other, you're going to be getting both, either the first section or the second section. So patients could literally be their own placebo if something were to happen, or they could do a comparator to if the intervention actually worked.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, even then, I'm trying to think of like
Patty
where I
said
see
washout.
this, like,
You can have washout periods, but then at least. Sorry, Brad, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I mean, this is again like if you have insurance and you have a chronic disease, what's your why join a placebo-controlled trial?
Yeah, because you're already getting a therapy.
Yeah, you can go get one, and it's not. Maybe it doesn't even cost very much, depending on the therapeutic area, right? Like, and again, I get it. Like, it's easier said than done, and there's a lot of scientific considerations, but it just makes it damn near impossible, depending on where you're at. If everyone has good insurance and they don't want to, get sicker, See, and this is my problem too. A lot of times there is a good alternative. And if there is, then why would they choose a clinical trial if assuming again they've got insurance and again maybe they don't, but then you're sort of like creating another weird stratification where like the only people in trials are the people who really need to be in trials, which doesn't seem like a very good
and that's what we run into. It's either research trials out of desperation through likely financial toxicity, or research trials as an dumping ground. I don't know what's going on with them, send them to research. And that happens a lot too. So you've got this really weird dynamic of the patient populations you're looking at. So.
Yeah. Well, and again, to that 2000s, no good allergy meds, and now ALS have many insured, but nothing good out there. And I think those are, I don't see why we're not at least testing against the standard of care.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're either going to get the standard of care or you're going to get the drug, not that you're going to, for things that have which I feel like we still see that, like, which I thought was a thing that we weren't supposed to do. Right. Like I thought like if there's an available treatment, like it seems unethical to deprive them of treatment.
I think
for a placebo.
Well, that's where the bioequivalent studies come in. You'll go bioequivalent, this versus standard of care, see if something has a better outcome than standard of care, like the little mini steps going forward in progress, just kind of putting it head to head with what we're doing right now. And a lot of the generic brands, a lot of the people who are trying to develop generics, they do a lot of bioequivalence.
Yeah, and that seems fair enough, I guess. At least you're getting
something
ideally, or presumably, right? Or presumably it's going to work to some degree. Again, we see this a lot with like the GI trials we do, where it's like getting them perfectly in the right place, but like they'd rather go put another biologic that's on the market, which there are some, and maybe this is the best answer, is just turning down trials that don't, aren't like adjunctive or against standard of care. You know what I mean?
That's actually an interesting question, Brad. For what reasons do you normally turn down trials?
I'd say, we have for any number, but certainly, patient population is obviously a big deal. But just like that, we're starting to get a little bit better at identifying things where it's like, okay, well, this patient doesn't really quite exist unless you just happen to catch them exactly at the perfect time, at the perfect day, during the perfect part of the process. And when we feel like that's not very feasible, to start to turn that away. Now, we've got doctors who want to work with different mechanisms of action. And so we may take studies that are very challenging, but they have a particular scientific interest where, I may have turned that down just due to the true possibility of finding the patient. But they want that option sort of in their arsenal of how to,
to help their patients.
Yeah.
It gives them something else in their care toolbox.
Right. But that's where I think, standard of care doesn't work for everybody, but a lot of times if you've tried the standard of care, you don't qualify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to be naive that's the other way. Yeah.
Well, so if you come in with, Crohn's disease and you were defecating blood, what do you want to do? Do you want to be sure, let's roll the dice, or do you want to
give me something now?
Please start me on a medicine, and then that may disqualify them from, if they get to a biologic, they may never be able to be in a clinical trial because they're not biologic naive.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole, but I feel like this is something we see across a lot of different trials.
Mm-hmm.
Even stuff like migraine, stuff that's fairly common, if you've tried, one of these drugs, then you can't be in it.
Yeah, a lot of the methotrexate failures, you have to have tried this, and your room studies will do that, Patty.
Anyways, man, we pretty much blabbered for an hour.
We filled an hour. That sounds, all kinds of fun topics. Kind of bummed nobody else showed up on the screen. That's okay.
Maybe we'll give a little more notice next time and try to plan out. Because when I did it early on, I had a lot of people jump in and do sort of you get 5 minutes or you get 10 minutes or whatever, and then rotate through the crowd. But I didn't get very much of a notice for people, so it's all good.
No worries. And maybe even if you have any questions or any comments, any recommendations on what to talk about, I always just do it ahead of time. Obviously you have Brad's cell phone number now. Just act like you're Persian King. Try to get some gift cards. And
ask me for my passwords, whatever you want. It's out there. The next week, I haven't put it out there yet, but I think we're going to have a talk about what sites, what tech sites should be responsible for versus which one sponsors should, or basically which technology sites should be investing in. And we're going to have, Doug Bain, who I'm a big fan of. He'll be on there. Sylvain Berthelot from Calyx. I know we're going to have some other people on as well. So that'll be an interesting one.
Doug's got some strong opinions. That'll be an interesting conversation.
I always really like Doug's content and kind of what he puts out there. And as somebody who actually knows the tech side, I have a lot of respect for his opinion. So
1996, I think, is when he started. So he's been
at it for a hot
while.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're going to jump. Notefilepodcast.com. Check out saveoursites.com. Go check out crpn.net.
crpaynet.com.
crpaynet.com. Sorry, I botched it. crpaynet.com. Otherwise, anything else you want to plug before we sign out?
CRPN's growing. If you don't know about it yet, please feel free to reach out. We've got a lot going on.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your week. Peace.
Bye.